Hey guys, what is going down? My name is Aridon, head coach of the Wisconsin Dusknoir. This is the first video on the new channel for the team itself. If you're following along from a previous channel of mine, or from Twitter, or from anywhere else, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. So, the first video on the channel, like I said, we're going to kick it off with the Delta DBL League Season 4 recap for the Wisconsin Dusknoir, the first draft league that the team is participating in on the channel, and the first in 7th Gen for myself, which is pretty cool. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. So we're going to run over our picks for the DBL draft. I'm not going to go super in-depth with everything because I don't want to give too much away. I'm the type of person that likes to be really creative with my sets, and I am also the type of person that probably talks too much about stuff, and those don't go together well, so I don't want to give away anything I really want to do. I'm going to basically go over the basics of why I drafted each mon, and just kind of a general overview on the team. So before we get into that, though, we're going to talk a little bit about the DBL draft itself, some rules that we had in place beforehand, as I'm also the commissioner of the DBL if you're not aware. So we wanted to be really conservative this season. With Sun and Moon, there's a lot of new stuff, and we didn't want anything to be extremely overpowered or anything of that nature. So we had all Tapus banned, and we also had all Ultra Beasts banned, and we also had Mimikyu banned, and I think we had Magirna banned, and all of the other obvious bans, Solgaleo, Lunala, and everything that came from a previous generation. Like all the bans from last season were also banned, except Mega Sableye was not banned this season. But pretty basic stuff. A lot of leagues allowed a few Ultra Beasts and a couple Tapus maybe, but we decided to just ban them all, and we can figure out how things go later on. We'd rather be safe than sorry. We don't want anything to be overpowered and then take over and just stuff like that. That's never fun. We're still kind of working out Z moves. We probably should have figured it out beforehand, but we'd all kind of agreed that Z moves we just leave them as is, or as are, or however that English works. But a couple of things have come up recently, and we're still trying to figure those out. But anything that we discuss in the draft, or if anything of that nature comes up during the draft that I'm going to go over in front of you guys, or for you guys, I'll explain it as we get there. One final note, this season we decided to put Megas in with the regular Pokemon, so they're not a separate tier like they were last season. We kind of follow the GBA style draft, but we're slowly kind of straying away with it and doing our own thing. Like I said, this season we put Megas in the regular Pokemon drafting pool, which does not make drafting a Mega required, but you can still only have a max of 1, so it's kind of interesting to see how people will play when Megas aren't required and when they're more of a, they're not a free thing anymore, so we're going to see how that affects the meta. So coming into the draft, the Wisconsin Dusknoir had the 5th overall pick. We did the reverse standings from last season as our draft order, so the team finished 7th last year, and then a couple people dropped out ahead of us, so that means we moved up a couple spots, and it worked out pretty well because we made the playoffs last year and still got a top 5 pick. So coming in the draft, I had a really cool draft plan of drafting Manaphy and Mega Scizor. It worked out pretty well. I had kind of a pseudo rain team with webs and a lot of cool stuff. It wasn't 100% my draft plan, but seeing as the first 4 picks of the draft went by and Manaphy was not gone, our first pick overall was Manaphy. So Manaphy is a really good mon in League format. It's a type of mon that can just sweep like anything with the right team around it, and that's why I wanted it. It did really good last season on the Liberty Vivians, and I wanted to try it for myself to see if I could make it work as well. It did break the record for kills last season, and then finished tying the record with Mega Medicham, both holding the record technically now, I guess. Water type, it gets good coverage. Tail Glow is obviously really good. It did have Sticky Web support last season, so we'll see how it does on my team this year. I'm not sure if we got Sticky Webs or not. I mean, I know whether we did or not, but I'll leave it until the end of the draft before I actually say whether or not we did. But the way I'm saying this probably tells you guys that we didn't get Sticky Webs. But Manaphy is still a really good Pokemon, regarded by many as one of the best, if not the best Pokemon in League format. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it does. It's a base 100 speed mon, base 100 across the board, so it has different options. It doesn't have to be Tail Glow every week. And the biggest thing with Manaphy is we know our opponent's team, so we can adjust our set accordingly. On the ladder, you kind of have to choose a couple things, which means Manaphy might be walled at sometimes, but in League format, you know exactly what 11 mons your opponent has, so you can decide what moves to have, and that means you're a lot less likely to be walled by anything, and that means you can set up a lot more easily, and a lot of cool options like that. The nickname, we have Noah. after Noah Spence. If you're not aware, I'm obviously not obviously, but I am a huge Buccaneers fan, Tampa Buccaneers in the NFL, and the nickname is after Noah Spence, rookie linebacker / defensive end. The relationship between him and Manafee, I figured he'll Noah Spence doesn't set up, but the biggest thing is he hits really hard and he'll blow by you before you can even really see anything going on. So if you understand what I'm saying there, I have a lot of Buccaneer nicknames this season as well, so get ready. My nicknames are kind of interesting. A lot of them are just random sports stuff that nobody gets, since this is like a Pokemon league, but it is what it is. At least I understand them. Hopefully a couple people understand what I'm getting at. So we drafted Manaphy. The next pick was planning to be Mega Scizor, but first round. Was it first round? Yeah, it was first round. Unfortunately, Mega Scizor did get drafted. Since it's a snake style draft, I was a little bit worried that Mega Scizor was going to get drafted anyway. But it did get drafted, and I didn't really want to take regular Scizor because it didn't fit the team as well. I kind of need the bulk that Mega Scizor provided, and regular Scizor isn't as solid of a setup sweeper as Mega Scizor is. Did I say that right? I think so. Because I kind of wanted to have, like, the double-headed monster offensively for our first two picks. I wanted to have something that can set up and sweep specially, and something that can set up and sweep physically. I was looking at the list of mons that were left, and surprisingly, this mon was still around, and it was to the point where I was debating between two Pokemon, and the other one was Garchomp, because Garchomp and and Manaphy seemed to work really well together. Garchomp got picked right before me, so that allowed me to pick this next mon, and that next mon is Megalopunny. Megalopunny slipped to the 5th pick from the end out of 16 teams in the second round. Kind of crazy, but it was still there, and there's no way I was going to be able to pass up Megalopunny in the second round in a draft like this. If Garchomp had been there, it would have been interesting. I think I would have had to pick Garchomp just because it works so with Manaphy, but I don't know. Megalopunny Manaphy is really good, and I'm so glad I have it. It's not necessarily the best setup mon. It just kind of has agility and baton pass and power up punch for setup. But Megalopunny is the type of mon that doesn't really need setup. It has fighting and normal stab with, what is it called? Oh my gosh, what's that? What's the ability called? Scrappy, that's what I'm thinking of. I can't even think of my own mon's ability. So it hits everything neutrally. I'm pretty sure there's nothing that resists both, because obviously ghost types can be hit by both of its stabs, which would normally be immune to. We also have, I guess I'll get into it later on, because I don't want to reveal my whole draft as we get started here. But yeah, it's a really good mod. Nothing really completely walls it. Like, some bulky psychic types and some bulky water types can do pretty well. But Megalopunny is such a big offensive threat with over base 130 attack and speed. I think it has base 135 speed and base 136 attack, if I'm right there. It also has decent defenses with 94 for both. It's got, like, low HP, but the defenses allow it to live, like, a good super effective non-stab move and a weak stab super effective move from various mons. So it's definitely bulky, it can live a hit. It's not the most versatile mon. It's gonna run pretty close to the same things every week. It only has like 6 viable moves you can really run on it in league format, maybe 7 or 8. But you're gonna see the same few coming each week, and it's just kind of the way the Megalopunny works. But it does work very well with Manaphy, and I'm glad I got those two together. I don't think I really need to explain those two a whole lot, so leave those as are, or as is. I still haven't figured that out, and get to the next pick. The nickname for Megalopunny is, well, Quan Alexander. My favorite player on the Bucks, another linebacker. Hits really fast, or hits really hard and is really fast, and that's kind of it. It's kind of hard to give Megalopunny a male nickname, since Megalopunny is the type of Pokemon that's like really feminine, but Quan was too good of a nickname to pass up for, and I had to leave it like that. So our next Pokemon, we have a lot of offense with our first two picks, obviously. I needed to start drafting some defense. So the next mon is a mon I'm a little bit concerned about since I've never used it in league format. It's the type of mon that can be taken advantage of really easily, but that mon is Blissey. So Blissey obviously can take any special hit. Like, even if you're setting up and you have Focus Blast, it's going to take it pretty well. But Blissey's the type of mon that obviously does not want to take physical hits, and that's a little bit scary because we don't deal with that at this point in the draft. So we're going to find something to take on those physical hits, of course. But Blissey's just interesting because it's going to lead to a lot of mind games with doubles. I know it's going to end up being, am I going to go to Blissey? So my opponent just doubles into their fighting type or anything physically offensive for that matter. Am I gonna get set up on? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It's gonna be a test season for me with Blissey. I'm a very offensive player when it comes to Pokemon, to competitive Pokemon. I'm not the best with bulk, so this season I wanted to see how I did with like the ultimate bulky Pokemon. So I have a couple later on that you'll see as well. I've never had this much bulk in a draft league team, and it'll be interesting to see if that makes me a better player or a worse player, or team composition wise. I mean, I'm hoping it makes me better, of course, because that's the ultimate goal, is to always get better. But I've never used these mons. I guess I have used one of the other ones. Still, what am I talking about? But yeah, so Blissey Cleric gets Wish. It's everything I kind of want. I wish it was a Fairy type instead of a normal type, but that's just the way it is. I was originally planning on drafting Florges instead, because it kind of does everything Blissey does. It doesn't set up rocks like Blissey does, but it's a Fairy type, and Fairy is a lot better type to have, especially for your Cleric and Wish Passer than normal is. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But other than that, Blissey's a pretty self-explanatory mon. You all know what it does. You all know how it works. Nickname-wise, we have Mrs. Poe. Donatari Poe of the Chiefs, heaviest player in NFL history to run for a touchdown and heaviest player to pass for a touchdown. Now, Blissey isn't the heaviest Pokemon out there, I'm aware of that, but it just reminds me of Donatari Poe, and that's what I'm going to leave it at. So next up, fourth pick overall. We're doing pretty well. I like our draft so far. We got some offense, we got some defense. The next mon is a mon I'm very familiar with. I've used this mon and its pre-evolution in League format before. The pre-evolution was in Little Cup, but it still works. It's a mon I used in Season 2 of the DBL. It's a mon one of my closer friends use as well, and that is Cofagrigus. Now, Cofagrigus is a mon I really like. I know Fancy, aka Pluto Legacy, now had it in Season 1, and he just like swept with it so much. He used really well, and he inspired me to use really well, and that's where my nickname for it came from, Osiris. That was his nickname for it. It's the Egyptian god of, I should probably have looked it up. I don't know if it's officially the Egyptian god of death, or Egyptian god of the underworld, or Egyptian god of the deceased, or something like that, but it's Egyptian something, and that's cool. I like Egyptian mythology. And yeah, so it kind of pairs really well. Blissey, obviously, Cofagrigus is a really good physical wall, not the best at taking special hits, and Blissey is the complete opposite. Blissey can pass whistles to Cofagrigus really well, since they both kind of take each other's coverage. Blissey is weak to fighting, Cofagrigus is immune to fighting, Cofagrigus is weak to ghost, Blissey is immune to ghost. It works so well, and it's a good core, but it's a really one-dimensional core, and that's what I'm kind of worried about. We're going to see how it goes, because it's a really predictable core, and either I'm going to have to make some really good doubles, or my opponents are hopefully not going to make doubles themselves, because this is the type of core that looks good on paper, but doesn't play as well. I'm not saying it's going to be a bad core. I'm hoping it plays well, but for me to use it well, I'm going to have to outplay my opponent. It's not the type of thing where I can just switch to my wall, because my opponent can just as easily double into their counter on my prediction, because that's the only thing I can go into. Like, if my opponent has a special attacker, then I'm probably going to need to go into Blissey. So they can obviously expect that coming, and you understand what I'm getting at. I've played against stuff like this before. It's not as hard as it seems to take down. So that is Cofagrigus. It's a good mon. It gets Toxic Spikes, which are cool. It gets Knockoff. It gets Pain Split, which I don't like. I don't like Pain Split at all, but it's our only option. I wish it got a better one-turn recovery option, but Pain Split can be cool. It does have low HP, so we can see how it works. It's not the type of mon that's going to get set up on, because it can actually hit. Blissey is cool as well. It's not like Chansey where anything can set up a sub on it and just set up, because Blissey does have usable special attack at base 75. So that's cool. At least I know nothing is going to really be too big of a threat for either of these to be set up on. And Cofagrigus does have Haze as well. On to our next pick. I was originally going to draft Rotom Heat, which would have worked really well with my team, but unfortunately that got picked by Roshi. I think that was this round. Maybe it was the next round. But it was one of these rounds. But another mon I really wanted, and another mon I'm really familiar with, was Sneasel. Now, Sneasel is really cool. I had it in the NDBL Season 1, and it worked really, really well. Like, you think of it as just the evolution of Weavile, but it's a lot better than that. Like, honestly, it's not that big of a drawback from Weavile, or not big of a downgrade from Weavile is what I'm trying to say. It loses 10 speed, which is honestly the biggest drop because you don't outspeed as much. But what I realized when using Sneasel is having base 115 speed allows you to run Adamant more than you can on Weavile, and just because there's so many things in that middle speed tier that you typically need to run Jolly Nature to outspeed, but with Sneasel, you don't have to worry about that, because with Weavile, you have to worry about those mons that have base 115 to base 124 that you would normally outspeed, but you don't outspeed if you run Adamant. But with Sneasel, you don't have to worry about those, which I guess you technically outspeed anyway, so it's a little bit different. But with Sneasel, it's like, at least you don't have to worry about them at all, because they're gonna outspeed you regardless, so why not run Adamant? I mean, you have no option to outspeed them, so you can run Adamant. It's a cool mon. It loses a little bit of attack, loses some defenses. It's a slight downgrade from Weavile, but it's not as big of a downgrade as some people make it seem to be. It pairs really nicely with Mega Lopunny, because the biggest weakness for Mega Lopunny is bulky psychic types, and Sneasel's a dark type. It has Pursuit, it has Knockoff, has a lot of options, Ice Priority with Ice Shard, as well as Ice Go Crash, Ice Punch, which is a really good stab to have. And it's kind of left at that. It's another semi one-dimensional mon. Like, you're not going to run especially very efficiently, I should say. I could probably try it too. I think I tried to once in the DBL. It just doesn't work very well. I think it has like base 35 special attack. But we made Mega Beedrill work especially once on the ladder, so that's a thing. It pairs really well with the rest of my team. We have a bit of a fighting weakness, as we see. Mega Lopunny's weak, Blissey's weak, Sneasel's weak. Cofagrigus can't take everything physical, so we have to be careful of that, because mons do have coverage other than stabs, so Cofagrigus has to watch out for knockoffs and other dark and ghost type moves from fighting types we might be switching in on. Callisto, the story with this is when I had, well, let's start with Fantasy, because Fantasy had Weavile in Season 1 of the DBL, and he named it Pluto, because dwarf planet, small, kind of weird, ice, cold, you know what I mean. And then when I had Weavile in Season 2, I named it Jupiter, kind of like contrasting that, so biggest planet, a little bit warmer. And then when I had Callisto is a moon of Jupiter. It's really kind of nerdy, and I'm not going to get too far into it, but it's a space thing. It's a moon of Jupiter. We'll leave it at that. Next up, we have a mon I've never used before. It's a Gen 7 mon, and we'll see how it goes. So that mon is Turtonator. Where do I begin with Turtonator? It's a fire type. It's a fire dragon type, which is a really good defensive typing. Although it's weak to rocks, I learned from Reshiram that it's good. I mean, that isn't Uber's. I've never really used Mega Charizard Y, but I know that fire dragon is a pretty good defensive typing. It's a nice grass switch-in if Manaphy has any issues with grass types. Superior wasn't drafted, and there's not really any major grass types that I can think of, but like Breloom, maybe? I don't know. We'll see. It's a decent physical wall. I know it has like base 135 defense. It's got decent special defense as well. HP is a little bit below. It's like 70 or something like that. I don't have stats on me. I should probably have opened Showdown, but I need my other monitors. So that's a thing. It's a good defensive mon. It's also decently offensive as well. Fire Dragon is good offensive typing, or coverage to have for stab. Has Shell Smash, but it's not the best because it has base 36 speed, so you're not going to outspeed much anyway if you're a +2 speed unless you're really investing in it. But yeah, it's a really cool mon. It fits the defensive scheme I'm kind of building so far. It's a nice middle ground mon between Cofagrigus and Blissey. For the nickname Damar, it's after Damar Dotson, left tackle for the Bucks. No, not left tackle. Right guard. It's an offensive lineman for the Bucks. That's all we need to know. We don't need to go into it because the line has been shifting around a lot lately, and I don't know exactly. Well, actually, is he hurt? It's not relevant whether he's hurt or not. But yeah, Buccaneer reference. You probably don't get it. That's okay. Does Turtonator provide anything else? Not really. It's a cool mon. We'll find some stuff to do with it. I've never used it before. It just was too good to pass up. I needed a fire type. That's why I wanted Rotom Heat, but I didn't get Rotom Heat because Roshi took it from me. And yeah, so that's the thing. Next up, we have Klefki. Klefki is really cool. Klefki's a mon I wanted. It's a fairy steel type, and it's not the best fairy type. It's not the best steel type. It doesn't fit the typical roles that a fairy type or a steel type would fill. But what it does, it has Prankster, and it gets Spikes, and it gets T-Wave, and it gets a lot of cool stuff. Manaphy and Mega Lopunny both really appreciate Spikes and other hazards, so hopefully we can really use Klefki for that. it's a fairy type. Every draft needs a fairy type, and I didn't have room for like the typical cleric fairy types, and I already had Blissey, so Klefki was the mon I chose. Like I said, not the typical fairy type. It's not gonna do the regular stuff fairy or steel types do, but it still has those typings. And we'll see how it works. It's the type of mon I usually kind of looked like it's a tier 2 mon, but I've always felt like it wasn't tier 2 quality. But when I had Mega Lopunny and Manaphy, I felt the need to draft it just because of that spike pressure, as well as just general utility is really cool on it. For the nickname, Jaquiz Rogers, another Buccaneer reference. This is going to be kind of a weird reference, I guess. But so Jaquiz Rogers is like 5'6", he's really small. Klefki is a small mon. And when you don't expect it, that can kind of be your key to victory. Haha, that's lame. That's lame. Yeah. So moving on to our next mon, we have Beninock, Claydol. Claydol's a cool mon. I'm not sure how it's gonna work. I needed a rapid spinner. I wanted Donphan, but guess what? Rorschach took it from me, and it sucked. But Claydol's cool because it sets up rocks. It has rapid spin. It's also an earthquake immunity, which our team is kind of weak to earthquake. I mean, you always have to have checks to earthquake because it's such a prominent move. But Claydol's cool. It also gives us another fighting resist with psychic typing, since a lot of our team is weak to fighting. It's an ice weakness, but our team handles ice pretty decently. We have Klefki, which resists, Turtonator, which takes it neutrally. Sneasel technically resists, but doesn't want to take it anyway. Manaphy resists, Blissey takes ice beams. It's a cool mon. Not very offensive, that's the biggest drawback, because its earth powers and psychics don't hit very hard at base 70. But it's mainly a utility mon for me. It sets up rocks if we needed to, so all the pressure isn't on Blissey, and it also is a rapid spin option, because even if you don't use the rapids or the hazard removal options, you need to have them around so everyone doesn't just set up hazards on you like crazy, because they will if you don't have options to remove them whatsoever. Yeah, the nickname, another Buccaneer player, rookie offensive lineman this year. The biggest thing is I'm not really sure how it's gonna do, and like Beninock, we're not sure how he's gonna do. So, and it's an offensive lineman. Claydol's kind of a bulky mon. It's round, you know what I mean. But yeah, so that is that. Next up, we have Dugtrio. Dugtrio is around. It's another ground type. You need ground types because Manaphy is weak to electric, and electric type Pokemon are trying to take advantage of that. So, Dugtrio is obviously a really good Pokemon. It can trap any grounded electric types. So, what am I saying? I'm getting distracted by Discord. I need to, yeah, whatever. What am I saying? I'm trying to keep up with this. So Dugtrio can trap electric types and get rid of them. It can trap anything else as well. It's not only going to trap things that it's weak to, it can also trap other things and get necessary chip damage on them. Maybe some random fighting type that we're weak to or anything like that. We can trap them and get a couple hits off on them, which can be really nice. It sets up rocks, so another rock option. It's what else does it do? It's got good speed. It's base 120 speed. Our team is really fast. I think we're one of the fastest teams in the league, and it only gets faster as we go along here. We have Mega Lopunny above base 130, Sneasel above at base 115, Klefki has priority, so that's a thing, and then Dugtrio at base 120. So it's a nice mon to have. An offensive ground type works really with Manaphy, and that's kind of the reason we drafted it. I'm surprised it was still there. Round of tier 3 mon, after being buffed in Sun and Moon, it's a really good mon, and we're going to see how it does. The nickname, Dreams, and here, obviously, you know Matt, Diglett Dreams. Diglett is his mascot, so Dugtrio kind of is the same thing, and then if people have dreams when they're playing us of actually winning, it's not going to happen because their dreams are going to end when Dugtrio comes in. I probably should have thought that through more because their dreams are going to end when any of our Pokemon come in, but that's a thing. Next up, we have Raichu. We need an electric type. We didn't have one. I was debating between regular Raichu and Alolan Raichu because they're both really good. They both have their pros and cons. So I kind of just let it go and hope someone else would take one of the two to make the decision for me. And eventually, Charters Gaming and the Minnesota Wild Charge did take Alolan Raichu, so I took regular Raichu. The pros for it compared to Alolan Raichu is that it has lightning rods, so it's electric immunity. I guess we have enough of those now, so Manaphy is safe, as well as I guess it's our only electric weakness so far. But yeah, it's nice, and it's also... What am I saying? It has lightning rod, so +1 attack. It kind of works well. It deters our opponents from going for electric type moves. Like, normally when you have a ground type, your opponent still might go for an electric type move because the worst thing that's going to happen is it just gets canceled out. But with Raichu, they have a reason to actually not go for it because we get a boost if they go for electric type move on us on a switch-in. So that is cool. The cons compared to a Alolan Raichu, it doesn't have the psychic typing. The psychic typing is cool, but looking at our team, it might be okay because we have kind of dark and ghost type weakness anyways now, so it's actually okay, and it does have slightly lower special attack than Alolan Raichu, and Alolan Raichu has electric terrain options, which are kind of cool. But regular Raichu is still cool. The nickname Tesla, we all get that. That's like the common nickname on Raichu now. And finally, our last pick, we have our final mon. We have 100 points left, so it means we can take anything tier 3 or below. The tiers are pretty similar to the GBA tiers. And the mon I ended up taking was Aerodactyl. Now, I'm going to say something after we talk about Aerodactyl here, because Aerodactyl is not on the team, but I'll explain why I picked Aerodactyl. It's another rock setter. You can never have too many rock, well, you probably can, but it's nice to have another one. It's a defogger, so another hazard removal option, another earthquake immunity, and it is another really fast mon at base 120 speed, or base 130 speed, excuse me. Or is it base 120? It's base 130. And that works really well with our team. The nickname Russell is after Russell Shepard of the Bucks. Just kind of that old reliable, you know, it's always there when you need him. Never gonna mess up too bad. And yeah. After the draft, I realized Aerodactyl, there's a mon that is really similar to Aerodactyl, but it doesn't work the same. I don't have a graphic for it here, so Aerodactyl is just gonna chill for a little bit. But I did end up picking up Crobat and dropping Aerodactyl. Crobat is a mon I have used before. I really liked Crobat. Crobat brings some other pros in that it's another fighting resist, a quad resist fighting, another grass resist, a quad resist grass, and Aerodactyl is neutral to both of those, which is kind of iffy since the rock type isn't the best defensively. Crobat also gives us U-turn, which is really cool. The only other form of momentum like that we had was Baton Pass on Megalopunny and Volt Switch on Raichu, so now you have U-turn on Crobat, which is really nice. We have more usable Flying Stab because all Aerodactyl really had is Aerial Ace, but Crobat has access to Brave Bird, which is cool, and it's also Poison type, which we did not have yet, so it means it's another check to Fairy types. Not the best because it kind of relies on Poison Fang and another move that's Poison type, but it's like base 70, so it's not the best. But yeah, so Crobat is on the team now. Aerodactyl's gone. Crobat is going to retain the Thomas nickname from Season 2. And yeah, it'll work pretty well. I really like Crobat. I said it's like Aerodactyl in the sense that it's got the same weaknesses, kind of. It's weak to electric, it's weak to rock and rocks, but it's also a defogger, it's also a base 130 Pokemon, and it's also cool, I guess is what we'll leave it at, because I can't think of another option to compare them with. But yeah, that is our draft. You can see everything on your left. That's our full team there. I haven't updated yet for Crobat because I made these graphics before I added Crobat. But that is that. I can see the full team picture here. Again, Aerodactyl is on there instead of Crobat. I made this up before adding Crobat, but it is what it is. You know, this is the team that's drafted, and Aerodactyl was still drafted, so it still deserves some credit for being on the team. Our first battle is going to be up at, or I guess our week 1 battle is against the Colorado Mamoswine and Eric. We played him a couple times before, you guys probably know him. The team prep will be up Saturday, January 14th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and the battle will be Sunday, January 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, assuming that the battle is done in time, but that's tentative dates, I guess. It's just upload times. The week begins week 8, or January 8th, and upload at the end of the week. Makes sense. You know what I'm saying. Those battles will be on this channel, so make sure you guys check those out. And other than that, let's hope for a great season. I'm feeling really confident about this team. I really like the potential that our first 2 picks in Manaphy and Megalopunny bring, as well as everything past that. It all complements each other pretty well, and it's a lot better than the original draft plan I had, I think. So I'm glad that Mega Scizor got taken. and it works out really well. And one thing I was saying before I started talking about it, my Lego Megalopony Pythagoras is one of the only things that actually takes it on, because Mummy gets rid of Scrappy, but it works out pretty well. And Pythagoras is also a really cool Pokemon. I have the only thing in the game that actually takes on Mega Medicham decently well, so that is also really cool. But other than that, this video is over 30 minutes, and that's a long time. Thank you for watching. Make sure you check back soon for those week 1 team prep and battle against the Colorado Mammoth. Hopefully we can start the season 1-0. And the plan is to go all the way this season, and we'll see if we can do it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.